Many horror movies claim to be based on true events. Now some lie to us, there's no doubt about that, but how many of these claims are actually true? From serial killers to the supernatural, we're going to be counting down the top 10 scary movies based on true events. Hey guys, welcome back to Beyond the Screen, I'm your host Lucy McPhee. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe, and stick around until the end of the video where I'll be responding to some of your comments. And with that, let's jump in. In at 10, Open Water. Released back in 2003, this survival horror follows a couple who go scuba diving off the Great Barrier Reef, but when their boat accidentally leaves them behind in shark-infested waters, they're forced to survive for as long as possible.
Are you alright?
It's a frightening film and terrifying to imagine actually happening. Yeah, it did. In 1998, American tourists Tom and Eileen Lonergan were left behind by their diving company, and by the time the mistake was realized 2 days later, it was already too late and the couple were never seen again. Now the cause of their death is unlikely to be a shark attack like depicted in the movie, as the couple's dive jackets were eventually found and were undamaged, leading some to believe that the Lonergans likely took them off in a delirious state and thus drowned. In at 9, Black Water. Released in 2007, this British-Australian horror is set in the swamps of Australia and sees a group of fishers attacked by a massive crocodile.
I'm okay. Where's Jim?
He got taken.
More frightening still, it was actually inspired by a real attack that occurred in December 2003. Friends Ashley, Brett and Sean came to a spot near the Kangaroo Flats to race quad bikes. However, their day became an unforgettable nightmare when a crocodile killed Brett, then returned to circle relentlessly beneath a tree where the others had taken refuge. In at 8, Deliver Us from Evil. Released in 2014, this supernatural horror follows a cop and a priest who team up to take on the supernatural.
I've seen some horrible things. Nothing that can't be explained by human nature.
Then you haven't seen through evil.
The film itself is based on the memoir Beware the Night, written by self-proclaimed demonologist Ralph Sacchi, a book in which he tells true stories, particularly about the time he found himself in the presence of one of hell's most dangerous devils, possessing a woman. In at 7, The Amityville Horror. Released back in 1979, The Amityville Horror follows a young couple who purchase a house in Amityville, New York, which turn out to be haunted by the supernatural.
There was a family lived here some time ago. They had a similar problem.
I'm living in their house. We need to get out of here.
Now the real case is actually quite famous thanks to the involvement of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The real-life Lutz family moved to an Amityville home in 1975, a year after Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered 6 members of his family. The Lutzes lasted just 28 days before fleeing, citing strange odors, sounds, and many other terrifying phenomena. In at 6, The Conjuring. Released in 2013, The Conjuring follows paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, played by Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who are forced to help out a family in a haunted farmhouse. Now, Ed and Lorraine Warren were very much real, as is the Perron family who the film is based on. Lorraine was actually a consultant for the movie and insists that many of the supernatural horrors that take place in the film truly happened. Andrea Perron says the same, recalling an angry spirit named Bathsheba. I quote, "Whoever the spirit was, she perceived herself to be a mistress of the house, and she resented the competition my mother posed for that position." In at 5, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Released back in 1984, A Nightmare on Elm Street follows the big baddie Freddy Krueger, who kill teenagers via their dreams.
The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
Wes Craven told Vulture that the idea actually stemmed from an article published in the Los Angeles Times about a family of Cambodian refugees with a young son who, I quote, told his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him, so he tried to stay awake for days at a time. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought the crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead. He died in the middle of a nightmare. Here was a youngster having a vision of a horror that everyone older was denying. That became the central line of Nightmare on Elm Street." End quote. In at 4, The Exorcist. Released in 1973, The Exorcist follows 2 priests who attempt to remove a demon from a young girl who becomes possessed after playing with a Ouija board.
Nobody believed it, and nothing could stop it.
It's considered not just one of the scariest films, but also one of the best movies of all time. However, the movie was actually based on a 1949 Washington Post article that had the headline, "Priest Frees Mount Rainier Boy Reported Held in Devil's Grip." Director William Friedkin stated to Time Out London, I quote, "Maybe one day they'll discover the cause of what happened to that young man, but back then it was only curable by an exorcism. His family weren't even Catholics, they were Lutheran. They started with doctors and then psychiatrists and then psychologists, and then they went to their minister who couldn't help them, and then they wound up with the Catholic Church." In at 3, Poltergeist.
I don't know what hovers over this house. I've never sensed anything like it.
Arguably the most famous on our list, Poltergeist was released back in 1982 and follows the Freeling family as they become tormented by evil ghosts and spirits, communicating with them through the television, even sucking in their 5-year-old daughter Carol Ann, forcing them to turn to a parapsychologist and eventually an exorcist. It's a terrifying film that was actually inspired by the unexplained events that occurred in 1958 at the Herman's home in Seaford, New York, where they experienced real-life scares with furniture flying across the room and loud noises like a popping bottle sound. In at 2, Scream. This 90s slasher was released in 1996 and is wickedly funny and incredibly meta. Centering on a group of teenagers who are ruthlessly harassed by a mysterious killer named Ghostface. The film is bloody and grotesque, but did you know it's actually inspired by the very disturbing, real-life events that were carried out in Gainesville, Florida in August 1990. Across 3 nights, Danny Rowling, who is more commonly known as the Gainesville Reaper, brutally murdered 5 students with a knife in a killing spree that baffled authorities. The murders injected fear into the neighborhood, with students taking turns to sleep and keep watch, with classes even being dropped for a week as everybody wondered who would be next. And finally, in at number 1, Psycho. Yep, one of the scariest films of all time is actually inspired by true events. No thank you.
God, Mother!
What are you running away from?
She looked like a wrong one to you?
Released back in 1960, Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, follows a woman who embezzles money from her employer and runs off to a mysterious motel where she is eventually murdered by its crazed owner, Norman Bates. However, did you know that Bates was actually inspired by the notorious grave robber Ed Gein, a Wisconsin man who was convicted of 1 murder in the 1950s, as well as suspected of others. However, the most alarming discovery was made inside of his home, where authorities found bowls crafted from human skulls and lampshades made from the skin of a person's face. Yeah, he also inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, there we have it. What did you guys think of these scary movies? Were there any true events that we missed? Leave us all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below and perhaps we can do a part 2. Before I go there, I just want to respond to a few comments from one of our last videos. Top 10 Shoney moments in Riverdale. Alex Riverdale Serpent said, "Shoney is my second favourite ship. Buckhead is my favourite ship." Well, if you want a video all about Buckhead, be sure to give our Shoney video a like and perhaps we can make it happen. Same for 300 likes. Free Nightingale said, "We need a part 2 just to see Lucy be so excited again. Please, bring me joy. I have none." Clay Tarman said, "Hello Lucy, love your video." Thank you for your support, Clay. Glad you're loving the content we're dishing out. If you haven't already, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another Beyond the Screen vid. Until next time, see you later.